right, welcome everybody to the webinar series once again on Wednesday. Most of us know the deal, but we'll go through it for those of you who may be new. The series today, or the series we're doing is Build a Better Beehive, and tonight's subject is going to be on the Leo position. I'm going to start the record button. Find that again.
Looks like it's already recording.
Oh, someone's already recorded. Okay. This is not a tiled meeting, so please govern yourself accordingly. These sessions are being recorded. Please keep yourself on mute during the presentation. You can press the spacebar temporarily and mute yourself. Or during the presentation, if you have a question, you're worried that you're going to forget it, type it in the chat room and we will cover that at the end of this presentation. We'll make sure we get everybody's points brought up. There will be a poll open at about 5 minutes before the end. Please take the time to fill those out. That helps us with these presentations and what material to present. The videos will be available through the Grand Lodge website through YouTube. It's not searchable on YouTube. You have to go through the links on the Grand Lodge website. Upcoming schedule. Next week, there will be no presentation. We're taking a holiday break, and we will resume again on the 30th with the secretary position. You can see this schedule again on the Grand Lodge website as well. And just another reminder, the show and tell challenge. This is submissions for video, essays, poetry, any kind of media that will answer the questions: what is Freemasonry? What will your life and legacy say about Freemasonry? And how will you help others find their way to rewards of the craft? Without further ado, Build a Better Beehive with Worship Brother Andy Niemeyer and Worship Brother Brian Smith. And I will switch it over to share. That's okay.
Well, thank you very much. As you're switching it over, good evening, brothers. My name is Brian Smith, and I'm the current Lodge Education Officer, or the LEO, as we like to call ourselves, at the Rochester Lodge number 21. Thank you for joining us this evening. Tonight, Worship Brother Andy Niemeyer, our Grand LEO, and I will be going over the duties of the Lodge Education Officer. We'd like to start by drawing your attention to the wheel located on the left. The outer ring will represent those virtues of our fraternity, and the spoke is each officer of the lodge. And with anything else, right, our lodge brethren should always be at the center. This is to show us that as these are the virtues, they are very valuable in our lodge's harmony. So we will attempt to explain how your duties in the lodge drive harmony to the beehive as a symbol of cooperative work. Next page, please.
So you want to know, gee, who is this person? Who is the Lodge Education Officer? It's best to kind of think of what makes a Lodge Education Officer. As an individual, it's somebody who can communicate and organize, I would argue, making concepts easy to communicate and to understand, bringing in to the lodge and outside of the lodge, as you'll see, ideas and topics that are practical, relevant to Masonry, and above all, brought up to date. The person who becomes the Lodge Education Officer should be somebody who shows those positive virtues of energy, optimism. They are outgoing in their nature and very positive and upbeat in who they are and how they present themselves. A Leo not only takes the job, but understands its importance. There is a person there who is now designated officially every year to keep Masonic education alive in your lodge, and has that natural desire to help their master have a great year. And you'll see in the next slide that's going to come up now, they are somebody who is, and this is important, wants to be knowledgeable about Masonry, our rituals, the lodge officer positions, enjoys researching reading, delving into things, gets excited when he gets sent off down a rabbit hole, as it were, of research on a completely different topic before he goes back to what he was researching, because he just found something new and exciting. Go on to the next slide.
So down the rabbit hole, we have our lamp of knowledge, which is the emblem, the jewel of the Lodge Education Officer. These are the actual installation instructions for the Lodge Education Officer. You now sit in the east, to the left hand of the worshipful master. What does the lamp of knowledge really mean? And it's kind of interesting because if we take a look at a short history of the Lodge Education Officer in the state of Minnesota, we find it's only 30 or 29 years old. Around 1990, this is a message from John Freeberg. In 1990, there was a committee that was formed to really take a look to see, what we can do for all of our members so that they are better inculcated with some of the mysteries of Freemasonry. And out of this was born the Lodge Education Officer. So a fairly brand new institution that is really looking backwards for hundreds of years, and of course looking forward to always prepare and always create the kinds of information and deliver the kind of information that our modern members, our modern men need today. So back in 1990 and 1991, this was ideas of the Lodge Education Officer were proposed and then adopted by the Grand Lodge of Minnesota. And the lamp of knowledge, it was just quickly, they had to come across a jewel or a symbol to represent the Lodge Education Officer. And they very quickly determined, let's do the lamp of knowledge. And that really then that was the origin of the Lodge Education Officer in the state of Minnesota. Next slide, please.
So the main jobs that come up for the Leo is, of course, the primary thing is to facilitate Lodge Masonic education. And those main duties are facilitating that education and serving as the leader, if the Lodge so designates, of an education team. And it's great to have more than one person working on these. It presents a lot of opportunities get more brothers out of the seats and involved in not only presenting, but also being a part of Lodge life. There's other duties. Should the worshipful master, Lodge tradition, and the Leo all kind of coincide and come together and coalesce, he can be there to help facilitate candidate education, preserving the Lodge's history, educational support to the Lodge officers, and should the master so decide, assign him some other duties where his use and knowledge of all aspects of Masonry can be incredibly useful. Let's look at that first duty of his. In the next slide. There we go. Educate Lodge brethren. The goal is simple. Facilitate Masonic education. Ways to do it are varied. That's one of the exciting things about this. They can do the presentations themselves. They can bring in guest speakers. You can bring in somebody from one of the appendant bodies. You can bring in somebody from outside and do it in a non-tiled situation. One of the things that I find very refreshing is to have new candidates or newly raised brothers talk about what Masonry is already meaning to them and what they've noticed and observed. I think with experience and time, we all have kind of our view of what Masonry means to us and maybe means within our lodge. It's great to get a fresh perspective from somebody who's seeing it all with fresh new eyes. You can have somebody look at a relevant topic. You've all heard me go on and on about this. When you look at the staircase lecture and look at the topics that are brought up there, even alluded to, you have a huge range of human knowledge and learning that you can discuss. Those who actually take the time to read the column in the Minnesota Mason notice that I've talked about things like how they actually did operatively quarry stones, history of the level, things like that. There's all sorts of great things. And it doesn't always have to be one-way learning. Quizzes, debating conundrums, Socrates Cafe, Masonic Jeopardy gets people involved. We'll talk a little bit more of some of the other things that can happen in this first duty in the next slide. One of the good things sometimes you can do is, instead of doing it in a stated communication, is at a dinner, an open non-tiled dinner. You can do it as an event to show prospective candidates some of the things that Masonry exemplifies, or a family gathering. For example, you can always lure them in with cherry pie around Washington's birthday to talk about colonial Freemasonry. It's all about educational communication and communicating those things. As Brother Hans, who helped, by the way, write the very fundamentals of this presentation and was the originator of a lot of this incredible material that Brian and I have to work with. But he points out that one of the things that Masons continually report that they want is more lodge education. They want to hear more, to learn more, and have more things presented. And one of the ways you can do that and enhance that communication is with a lodge education committee that Brian's going to talk about in the next slide. Oh, but before that, but wait, that's not all. Here are some of the things that you can use. The Grand Lodge, of course, has huge educational resources. We have folders and files. We have a deep Google Drive full of papers going back many, many years. We have the Minnesota Masonic Leo page on Facebook for social media, the Grand webinars, the Grand mentors. You can use your Grand View member portal as things go on. And of course, the Grand YouTube channel, which you access through Grand Lodge. And honestly, and I think I can speak for every one of the Grand Lodge education officers we've had in the last 30 years, and will go on long after I, reach out to us. We love doing this. We love talking to other Leos, prospective Leos. Leos are looking for some thoughts and some ideas, and just want somebody to share some Masonic education with. So never hesitate to reach out. No matter how strong or how weak you think your program is, I'm always available. And I know my successor, whoever that will be someday, will also be as accessible. Now, we go to the education team.
And thank you, Worshipful Brother Nehemiah, too. Just a little segue, I have drawn upon you and your wisdom as a Lodge Education Officer number 21. You've graced us physically, you've graced us virtually, and really, yeah, that is the key to that last slide there, is that as Lodge Education Officer, you're not alone, right? There are so many other brothers out there who are interested in learning, who are interested in doing research, who are interested in presenting, and you're not alone. There are so many resources out there. Here for duty 2, you're not alone either, but what we would require of you is to be the leader of the education team. Lodge Education Officer. Education is in your name. And with that, you've got to work, of course, with your Worshipful Master. He is the boss, right? But with that, you would want to be able to drive or help the Worshipful Master to say, basically, what kind of education do you want this year? Sit down with him and come up with an annual theme. One year, our theme in Rochester Lodge number 21 was men's health, right? So we did physical and mental men's health, and we brought in speakers from the world famous Mayo Clinic and other places in Rochester to present these kinds of issues. So there's other great ideas. Kids ID could be the theme, or whatever you want, whatever the Worshipful Master wants, but work with him on that. Define an annual budget, right? So you'll say, how much money do I have to bring in speakers, to bring in other people and all that? And maybe that annual budget is $0, but at least you can discuss that with the Worshipful Master and really understand, how and what he sees with this role. So an assistant Leo, somebody to fill in when you're not able to make it to those meetings, is a very powerful thing, and it really is a great opportunity for somebody else, a like-minded individual that maybe after 2 years being the Lodge Education Officer might be the next one. And so an assistant Leo would be definitely something you, as the leader of the education team, should identify and then to mentor this individual. Then speaking of mentoring, who are your proficiency coaches? Who are your mentors, right? Are they available? Are they qualified? As a leader of the education team, you should be coordinating all that for the secretary, for the worshipful master, so that he can delegate that role and responsibility to you, and you can take on that mantle with your expertise. And then the last bullet there, suitable education and location and necessary tools. So often the education would be done in your lodge room. Necessary tools, well, the beamers and the barcodes and the audio and just the kind of basic tools. Just make sure that those things are up and running and workable, and so that when you do bring in speakers, everything is working fine. Final bullet there, create, maintain the lodge education materials. In Rochester Lodge number 21, our secretary does an excellent job, but it never hurts to offer that help to say, hey, can I help maintain these candidate binders, new members, introductory materials, just to kind of keep that information fresh. So as new information comes into your lodge, it can then get pushed directly into the candidates, which are one of our prime types of people that we want to be educating. Next slide, please. And then coordinating the education events. So as the education team leader, sure, you've got education events that you were putting on. There are other speakers coming in. And really, like the second bullet there, the facilitation of announcements and publication events. What we do and what I think would be the best practice in this area is to have a common document, so that if you do have a speaker coming at your next stated communication, that you've got a title, got a short abstract, you've got a short bio of the speaker, and then maybe a photograph of them. Get that information into a common place so that you can push that out to Facebook, you can push that out to Twitter, you can push it out to your Trestle board, so that the communication then is cohesive and from the worshipful master is always got the same message about start times, end times, who's presenting, how do I get all the access codes, just to make sure that it's a common way. And with you as the team leader of this, you're making sure all that information is correct, and then you get that out to the different communication channels that your lodge uses. Recommended tools, a lot of shared kinds of things. I really recommend using Google Documents or some of the other kinds of sharing tools, so that you can write things once, you can make them available, and then the worshipful master can pull out from there. If he's going to be writing the trestle board, either your communications officer can pull from there, and everybody is getting exactly the proper messages at the right times. So with that, next slide, please.
So we're looking now at some of the optional things a Leo in his lodge can do. One of the big things he can do is facilitate candidate education. You alluded to it earlier. We'll want to go a little more into depth with that. Every lodge is different. Some lodges, this has been a traditional Leo job for, as it were, 30 years worth of time immemorial. Others have a candidate education, mentoring, preparation committee that does all of this. So I will preface by saying this is something you may be able to do. It may be something that you wouldn't normally do, but it is always something you can volunteer to do, and if not to lead, then to help with. Everybody has Masonicus overwhelmus when they go through the degrees. One of the great things during the time of preparation for proficiency is to have the Leo present to explain and talk about the obligations, the symbolisms, the allegories, to answer questions and discuss those things, to help with the proficiency coaches or be the lead of the proficiency coaches and work on candidate assessments on the master's behalf. In general, they can work with them on things like lodge decorum, general things about their lodge, about masonry, many of the things that can be done both specifically aimed at candidates or as part of a greater lodge education situation. Next slide.
And then segueing off of that, the education support to lodge officers. Here you are, right? Here you are. Look at the bottom bullet there. Represent your lodge at Grand Leo events. Here you are, either live or watching this as an archive, as a recorded version of this. You're doing exactly this, taking these great ideas, bringing them back to your lodge, and inculcating them in your how you structure the education team and how you structure your individual education that you're doing at your lodge. Right, recommended tools. It's not just all about talking. It's not just all about presenting. It's about listening. It's about traveling either virtually or physically and attend all the local, regional, state, national, and international lodge education events and learn what state of the art is. And again, bring that back to your lodge. Attend all the officer meetings. You are one of the primary officers, again, sitting to the left of the worshipful master. It's very important that you always are there and providing him, you can see there, educational content for the trestle board, and reporting back any kind of beneficial Grand Lodge changes and edicts, reporting it back to to your master, reporting to the secretary, so that this information is then shared amongst your lodge. So it really is, if you think about it, I always view the lodge education officer as the individual, again, to the left of the worshipful master, whispering guidance, into his ear. And your job is to have the worshipful master have the best spanking year possible and to make that individual to be as productive as possible. So it is indeed, you're working with and for the worshipful master, guiding and helping. And this is optional, but it's one of those things where every little bit that you can do in this area will go a long way into having a harmonious beehive, starting with the education. Next slide, please.
Finally, there's preserving lodge history. Now, a lot of lodges, what they do at the end of every year is they take the secretary's notes, they write up a short report for Grand Lodge, as is custom, and then they seal them up and put them away. Some lodges have other items. It's kind of fun for you as Leo to start going spelunking through some of those old three-drawer file cabinets that are maybe up in an unused room, finding little bits and pieces of things and asking about them. And if you're lucky, you'll still have brothers around who can remember them. On the other hand, you might find some little object or something from 1921. Probably not going to have a brother around who remembers being around in 1921, but it might encourage you to get maybe your assistant Leo or the committee together and start going through some of the lodge records from that period to find something. So it's not only looking at making sure modern lodge history is preserved, but seeing what you can find in your building from the older history of the lodge and making sure that that's readily accessible. And I might add, as a good Leo, that gives you at least one new presentation. Look what I found. And it's kind of fun to be able to do that. And I think your secretaries, because of the large amount of work we do present them with, will also deeply appreciate your help in helping preserve that aspect of the lodge's overall long story. Next slide. So you can see here, again, we reiterate the wheel. And I want to emphasize that the spokes of the wheel don't lead to only those specific items they are connected to, but with every item on the wheel. And in the end, we all connect with the individual lodge brother, be it whatever our job is. And we all work together to support that hub and also the outer wheel. The best example I can give right now is how 3 Leos came together to make this presentation. It started with Brother Hans Neese from Anoka. Brian, worshipful brother Brian there from Rochester, took Hans's incredible work, ran with it. We worked, all 3 of us together, to refine it and to give you this presentation tonight. We supported one another. We supported, I hope, a little bit of enlightenment and some brotherhood and some truth. And some little bit of Leo community, and we helped each other at the center of the hub. We want to appreciate all you being here tonight, and would like to open up the platform for any questions or comments or thoughts from any of you.
All right, anybody who has a question, go ahead and unmute yourself.
I just like to take a look or take an opportunity with the airtime just to also thank Hans for the tremendous, the tremendous material. All we did was just kind of, make sure the T's were crossed and dotted a few I's. But it really was, your vision was just tremendous, and it was wonderful, as wonderful Brother Niemeyer, expressed, wonderful in the spirit of lodge education officers and sharing and brotherhood, just to work with you. And it was, anyway, it was a pleasure.
Thank you for the excellent presentation, both of you. Especially like the part of aiding and assisting the secretary. Just a quick story for what I've been trying to do, because we've been losing a lot of our history. And we got a lot of stuff just randomly splayed out over around the lodge that most of us, we have no idea what it's for. And one of the things I started doing is going back and meeting minutes. Example is, we have a football in a case signed by a number of people. Managed to find it in the 20s. Our lodge went and visited University Lodge, which I believe is no longer in existence. But they went to a Gopher Michigan game or something like that, and they had dinner, and they're presented with this thing. We've just had it sitting out, but we didn't know the history behind it. We didn't know anything about it. So, you mentioned, the Leo working on that sort of thing. I think that's important to know what this stuff is.
Oh, I think any good Leo with a sense of self-interest would be love to go deep diving into his lodge's archives to be able to find that kind of material, simply because he just found another lecture topic. One less thing to have to go, what am I going to talk about next? Hey, we found this football. Who are these names? Who were these guys? University Lodge, never heard of it. Let me get a hold of Grand Lodge. I can give 2 or 3 sentences on the history of University Lodge and how they tied into mine. So I think helping the secretary preserve lodge history is an absolute gold mine for a Leo with the interest and the time to be able to.
And this is Brian Smith again. I would agree with that, of course, but then also counter to say that one of the things that we can do is help the secretary preserve the lodge history of this year. And that is taking pictures and recording things and getting information into the trestle board and doing the other kinds of things of digitizing the kinds of events and things that are happening this year. Because guess what? 100 years from now, what we're doing now is going to be history that Leos are going to be digging up, and hopefully it's not going to be, a dusty artifact, stuck in a corner someplace. Hopefully it's a message of a live and vibrant lodge that 100 years from now, brothers will be taking a look at it and go like, wow, look at that cool things that they did, right? The pancake dip, breakfasts and bike rides and all these different things, or the Chuck, what was it? The trick, I don't even know, the trick or boot or the trick or trunk or that we did. Yeah, we did it here, and they had like 150, 175 families come through. Just a tremendous success. Digitizing that information and preserving that, so that what we're doing now is history for the future.
If I can jump in for a moment, this is Terry Chilton. John Freeberg's on, and between the two of us, we are the only elephants left in the room that remember the start of the Grand Lodge Program and Education Program as it began 30-some years ago.
Great honor to have you both here. I hope we did you right. I hope we did you proud.
Well, you did wonderful. Thank you very much, Andrew and Brian. Let me I'll share just a couple of comments because you had alluded to a couple of things, and I want to set the record straight if I can. First of all, the Grand Lodge Education Committee started meeting in 1989, 1990 in earnest with the prompting of what would be the incoming Grand Master Rod Larson and ultimately Dwayne Anderson to ask how can we make a permanent change in bringing education into our lodges. And we discussed many different ideas and finally decided that we really needed to emphasize education to the place of having an appointed position within the lodge. It was decided that that position should be in the East. The place to the right of the Grand Master is traditionally the position of a guest or a Grand Officer, but to the left is the next most important position. And we decided that the Lodge Education Officer should sit on the left. And so in the East, so that it was not forgotten. You had mentioned why we have the lamp of knowledge as a symbol. The lamp, of course, is an ancient symbol of knowledge. Goes back a couple of thousand years in its allegories, but the reality is the lamp represents light, and it's the light that we are drawn to. And in fact, the very first question we're asked in Masonry is, what do you seek? And the answer is obviously more light. And that light is not physical light. It's the light of knowledge and the light of awareness or inner awareness of meaning and purpose. Someone has written that the entire purpose of Freemasonry in all of its degrees is to point to immortality and to teach us the significance of immortality. And I would agree with that. When I became a Mason in 1977, 43 years ago, and I was very curious about the lodge, very curious about Masonry, for a lot of different reasons, not the least of which was I was an ordained minister and was Masonry compatible with what I knew of my faith. And I had virtually no references and no place to go outside of McCoy's publication, which had a few books in it, and thankfully, one of the books was a book by Reverend Forrest Haggard entitled my mind is slipping. If I had not found that book, I would not have stayed in Masonry, because there was no brother in the lodge that could answer my questions as to why we address deity the way we did, except that it was a tradition. They had no other information to share. There were no other books in the lodge outside of Mackey's Encyclopedia and a number of books that had been out of print for 40 years. There simply was nothing there. What has happened over the last 30 years is a sea change in Masonic education in two ways. One, that we no longer look at the allegories simply as truth, but we try to understand a deeper sense of meaning and recognize that just because we speak it, we do not necessarily believe it is truth at the level of well, for example, that we had the Master Masons building King Solomon's Temple. We simply, there were Masons, there's no question about that. But any semblance to Master Masons in the sense that we know it in the modern sense is pure fiction. And unfortunately, we have tried to perpetuate to the world some of those allegories as being truths, and actually the allegories have a deeper meaning. and we failed to remember the deeper meaning. I could go on for quite a while, but I commend you for the work that's being done. And I would also just indicate that I'm secretary for the Philalethes Society and a past president. If at any time a lodge has an interest in getting some good Masonic reading, I would be more than glad to mail them some Philalethes journals. And also any lodge education officer, I'd be glad to point you at a resource that we have of virtually 7,000 articles collected over the last, since 1929, of the finest Masonic education that's ever been published. And we would be glad to assist you with that kind of resource as well. And also, if you're into Masonic education and research, it's an invaluable tool. So I just emphasize that also. John Freeberg can also speak to some of these things. John, anything strike you?
You're gonna have to unmute there, John.
Unmute, John.
I might be able to do it.
There you go, John.
Okay. All right. Terry, thank you very much for offering us your insights there. They're very helpful to us. Yeah, I being the other elephant here can remember most of this, so it's up to both of us to try to communicate here. But I'm especially happy to see all these brothers here learning what it takes to be an LEO and helping your lodge out. So I want to say thank you, brothers, for attending the meeting and participating here. And let's make a better show of the LEO program. Let's get it, keep it going and keeping our brothers up to date, because I know that they want it. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. And I want to reemphasize, I had in the notes in the slide and I didn't discuss it, Philalethes Society, Masonic Society. There are some outstanding Quattro Coronati. People have heard me refer to that before. There are some absolutely amazing research opportunities and groups out there of like-minded people who are doing some just amazing work in researching the craft and so many other of the things related to Masonry that becomes such a fantastic resource for any Leo to use. I have the disc with the 7,000 articles on it in PDF form. And I'm always deep diving that, looking for references and things to bring forth. So absolutely, there has been a sea change indeed. Research groups have maintained they've been quiet into themselves, and now they're expanding, offering their materials out to Leos. Jump on every one of them you can, because it's just, you'll always turn a couple of pages and go, I didn't know that. That's fantastic. Of course, when you start with a zero baseline like myself, there's a whole bunch of things you'll learn very quickly. But even for the most knowledgeable brother among us, can't emphasize these research groups and a lot of their online work more.
Andy and Brian, thanks so very much for this outstanding presentation. You guys brought it home. I would like to kind of add one more comment to what Terry and John were talking about. And right now I'm kind of heading up the membership survey for this year. And we got some excellent responses. If you haven't responded yet, I definitely would urge you to do respond. And without really giving away what ultimately is percolating out of that survey, I can share this with you, that the primary reasons why our men joined the fraternity are, and there are two that stick out beyond everything else, is obviously camaraderie, companionship, and to learn about Freemasonry. And not just learn about Freemasonry, the values, the morals, and ethics that the craft can offer. That's what drives man to Freemasonry. And it is upon us to really answer that call and give them basically what they came for. So thank you.
Thank you, Lodge, for all you're doing.
And
Yeah,
Brother
very
Terry,
good.
I want to get back to Brother Terry. I want to understand how to get in touch with him or whomever for more of this information.